Welcome back, tightwads. Today we have a special treat. We are smoking some baby back ribs for the first time. I did some video with no audio over it, so I'm recording my audio over it later. The first step we took was to remove the membrane on the back of the racks of ribs. There are several techniques that work, but this one seems to be the most popular and the easiest to use. You simply take a paper towel and grab the edge of the membrane at any part and then pull it away. The paper towel helps you grip the membrane as it soaks up the moisture, and it allows you to just pull the membrane slowly off the back side of your slab of ribs. The next thing I do is take another paper towel and dab it all over the ribs to remove any water, because I did rinse off my ribs to make sure there are no shards of bone in there. The following step is getting ready for the rub. I like to coat them with mustard. This gives the rub something to adhere to on the ribs. Coat both sides because we're going to put rub on both sides of the ribs. The next thing is using Dizzy Dust. I like the Dizzy Dust for these ribs, and I give it a nice coat on both sides, and then you'll see I apply mustard again and put a second coat of the rub. Make sure you get it nice and rubbed in, and then the last step is just to wrap it in saran wrap until you are ready to cook. I typically do this at least a few hours before the cook. If you do it more than 24 hours before, some people say that the salt in the rub actually makes it cure and turns it into ham, but I haven't really noticed that in my flavors, and I've done it several different ways. For my cook, I'm using Royal Oak lump. It's actually got some pretty large pieces in it, and I got the bigger bag from Walmart. Good price. It really looks a lot like the green egg charcoal this time that you get in the bags. If you buy the smaller bag, you get a lot of small pieces, but this one gave me a lot of bigger pieces. And then I have some applewood chunks that I'm going to put in after it's good and going, right before I put the ribs on. I like to keep my lower vent all the way open when I start the lump, and I light in 3 locations. I light back here, here, and here, usually with my loop lighter, and I leave it open for about 5 minutes to get it going, and then I close it down and go ahead and put it about 2 inches open on the top and bottom, and I slowly close it down until I get to the temperature I want, which is about 250 dome temperature. Alright, it's been about 5 minutes with the lower grate all the way open and the lid open on the egg. I'm going to go ahead and shut it down. Set my top grate to about 2 inches, and my bottom I'm going to slide all the way down to probably about 1 inch. And we'll let it sit here for about 30 minutes. Then I'll come back and lower the temperature. If it gets anywhere over 275 or 300 on the dome temperature, I'll go ahead and close them down a little bit. Each cook is different, so you have to kind of adjust as you go, but you want to settle it around 250 before you get ready to cook. Now is a good time to go ahead and get your ribs out of the fridge and let them get up to room temperature. With the egg top closed, I'm going to go ahead and try to dial it in to get close to where I'm going to need it for 250 degrees. About 1/4 width on the bottom for my egg. Some people have theirs open a little bit more, but I don't have a good seal on my egg right now. I have yet to install my new Rutland gasket, and after I do, I think I'll be able to leave it open a little more. And on the top, I'll leave it about 2/4 widths, and we'll see how that does. Alright, I've got my temperature about where I want it, so I'm going to go ahead and start getting the egg ready. I'm going to drop down my apple chunks down into the coals. Be careful not to burn yourself. I'm going to set my plate setter in, legs up, not putting one in the back part of the egg, and I have my 4 foil balls to keep the drip pan from getting too hot on the bottom. If it gets too hot, it'll boil all the liquid out, and then you'll have burnt smelling droppings. from as the fat cooks off the ribs. My drip pan this time is going to be half water and half apple juice. Hopefully this drip pan will hold up. It's pretty flimsy because I don't have one of my good ones out here. Go ahead and spread these out a little bit. It's a little better. Pour some more juice in there. I don't want to run out. I don't want it to cook off all my liquid in the drip pan because you'll get burnt tasting stuff from the drippings. So that looks good. Now I'm going to set my grate on there. It just sits right on top of the plate setter feet since we have it up. Then we're going to set the grill rack or the rib rack on there. And I have my ribs out of the refrigerator, brought up to room temperature. I put the rub on there earlier this morning, so to cut down on my prep time for my cook this afternoon. And I'm going to go ahead and set them in here. Just going to use one hand, keep my other hand nice and clean. I only have one rack today, so I just put them both in the middle. Actually, I'm going to spread them out one. And I'm going to shut it down. Make sure my temperature comes back up between 210 and 250. I don't want it to get anywhere above 250, and I don't want it to cook anywhere below about 210, 215. So I'll check back in about 15 to 20 minutes. It's going to take a while to warm up everything we just put in there and get it back up to temperature. But every 30 minutes or so I'll check my temperature. Every hour or so I will check the meat and make sure it looks okay. But we'll start off with 2 hours naked, just like they're sitting now. We're about 45 minutes in now, and you can see we have stabilized at about 230. So the nice thing about green eggs is once they get to temperature, they typically hold their temperature. I did have to open a lot more than I thought I would. But we are stabilized, so we're good to go. Keep on going for another hour and 15 minutes, then we'll check our progress, and I'll have to decide whether I want to foil for the next 2 hours or leave them on here naked for the next 2 hours. We're at the 1 hour mark. We're going to take a quick peek. So we'll burp it, open it up, and see what we got. They're drying out pretty good. You can see the bones now exposed just a little bit, so it looks like we're right on track. We're going to close it back down. We're about at the 2 hour mark, and the next step is I'm going to wrap them in foil for the next 2 hours. I'm going to put a little bit of apple cider vinegar in the bottom of the foil. I've kind of made some boats, if you will, for each rack, and I'm going to pull them straight off the grill, wrap them up, and put them straight back on. You can see our temperature is still just below 250, which is right where we want it. We'll take a look. This is what our ribs are looking like. Doesn't look like a ton of progress from last time, but they're right where we want them. So we're going to pull them off, put them in our foil boats, and then stick them right back on. We have our ribs back on. I actually just noticed, wasn't paying attention earlier, and I put my rib rack on upside down. If you put them on upside down, it's really hard to get the racks of ribs out of the rack. So got it set back up. We're going to go and close the top back down, make sure it gets back to just under 250, around the 230, 240 mark, and we'll let it sit here for another 2 hours. All right, we are 2 hours in foil completed. We're still at a good temperature here, about 240. So we're going to open the egg, and we're going to pull the foil onto this pan. We're going to take them out of the foil and put the ribs back in the racks for the last 1 hour to crisp up the bone. Here's what the first rack is looking like. It's really tender. I'm scared they're going to fall apart, so I'm going to go really gently with my tongs. They really look like they're almost done, so my wife will be happy. We don't have that much longer before dinner time now. Put those in there before they fall apart. Grab the other rack off. I'm not going to do any sauce today. We'll put on some warm barbecue sauce at the table if wanted, if needed. But I prefer to keep my ribs dry. Oh, that one looks good. This one doesn't look quite as done. The bones aren't quite as exposed. We're going to slide it back in there and shut it down for the last hour. Alright, our last hour is now up. So we're going to look in here, and you'll notice that the ribs have pulled back really nicely on this one. And on the bottom of the other one you can see the same. We're going to pull these off and foil them, and then wrap them in a towel until time to eat dinner. Pull them off. Wrap them up good. Then I'll take them inside and wrap them in a towel. Just leave them sitting on the counter until time for dinner. If it's going to be more than 20 minutes or so, I do recommend that you put them in some kind of cooler to keep the heat inside them. But it's only going to be about 15 or 20 minutes for us before dinner time. So we're good to go. We're just leaving them on the counter. Don't forget to shut your grill down, meaning close the top vent all the way, close the bottom vent all the way, so that you can use the rest of your lump for a later cook. I learned a few things from this cook. The meatier rack of ribs should have cooked a little bit longer. I also think next time I will leave them foiled all the way to the end of the cook instead of unwrapping them for the last hour. They looked a lot better and juicier before I rewrapped them or unwrapped them and put them back on the egg. But all around, the flavor was delicious. We had a great meal, and they were very enjoyable. If you found this video helpful, give me a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. I do make other videos related to green eggs, but I also make videos related to repairs around the house and things I do in the yard. If you want to see a video showing how to do a low and slow cook on a big green egg for a Boston butt, click the video in the top left. If you want to see the correct way to open charcoals that have this string at the top, click the video in the top right. Hope you guys have a great day.